Okay. Good morning, Elliot, my boy. I have got some babies here that have been brewing. So this tray here, which you can see has all been saturated, I have a little spray mister. And it's been in the oven for 2 days. And in that time in the oven, these 2 layers of paper towel have been hatching out these little babies over here. And so you'll notice that there's these white things hanging off them, and those are their little roots getting ready to become little baby plants. And so we got enough of them in here now that we can do a round of potting. Now they don't all come up necessarily the same day, right? So I probably got 20 or so at this point. Haven't counted them. But you can. Pause the video here to count. Anyway, look at that. I see what that is. So yeah, so there's the babies, right? And if you look at some of them, I'm not sure how good you can see from there. Let me just see. So, come here, you. Let's see if I can get this in there a little closer for you, right? So you can actually see here on this guy. Hang on, let me get my stick pointer. This is a tool, believe it or not. That's the root. You can see the seed casing is still there, and you can see bits of green and yellow here, which is the actual plant in here, getting ready to burst onto the scene. So now they've made it to this stage, which is done by keeping them in a dark, damp place, because the seeds to hatch, there's a word for it, germinate, whatever the hell it is, and to make this root part, that's the part that goes in the earth, and so we need to put it into the earth facing down because it's the root. And then the seed is where the plant is, and it's going to grow up. And so basically, we take dirt, which I've got this pre-moistened soil here, that it's like a proprietary formulation done by Deirdre. And so I take a bit of that dirt, I just hose this down a little bit just to get like half a liter of water on it so it'd be damp a bit, and then I pack it into these little Jiffy pots. See, that's proprietary. Jiffy pots, man. And so now I'm going to poke a hole right in the center of that pot. See, just like that with this stick, and sort of pack it and get it so that I can take the stick out and the hole remains, right? And then I take one of the babies and I grab them by the seed casing and I put the root down into the hole. And I kind of tuck that root down in there as best I can. But I want to leave the seed and the rest of the baby on top, right? And then I'm backfilling the soil there around, right? And so that's all we're doing. So now that root, which was living here in between 2 sheets of moist paper towel, is now going to live in the soil, and the soil is now going to become the medium for him to grow in. And eventually, as I do these, I'll put them all into this little container here. And these will go back inside. I brought them outside to pot them because dealing with this soil is a messy job. I'm just noticing now that this soil needs a bit more water, I think. Yeah, definitely that needs more water. So we'll get that a bit wetter. It's like mixing cement almost. Anyway. It's still feeling a bit dry. So, well, it's not too bad. Okay, so let's do some more. So again, handful of dirt into our little Jiffy pot. Just pack it a little bit. And then poke a hole. Run that stick around so the hole maintains its integrity. Grab one of the babies by the seed, stick the root down in, and then you squeeze the soil a bit, leaving the seed up on top so that the magic of sunlight can get to it, right? So whereas all of these seeds up until now have been here in the shade, but now that the plant is the root is grown, which happens in the shade with moisture, now the plant is ready to emerge, and it needs sunlight to do that. So that's just what we're doing here now, is we're setting up these babies so that the so that they can be in the sun. But they will go back in the house because they're not ready. There's a term for it. It's called hardening off, right? So we will harden these babies. Like once we have nice calm days, these guys will actually come out of the house like to go for a walk, sort of. You put them outside for the day in the sunlight so that they can get a bit of sun and do their little plant thing outside. And yeah, and then now these Jiffy pots I'm using here, this is like basically a cardboard. It's like the same material as a coffee cup tray, you know, those 4 coffee cup trays things. It's that brown paper. It's very fibrous, and it's usually made out of recycled paper, cardboard. And yeah, and these degrade, so you don't have to transplant the plants. You can just leave them in these little Jiffy pots and stick them in the ground. So, oh, here we have, look at this, interesting. Well, you can't see it here, but you can see some of them, the various phases of opening. And there's some here that you can it's just slightly broken apart, the 2 halves of the shell, and you can just see a bit of white. Whereas there's others where it's broken apart and the white is now climbed out of there by like a millimeter, right? And then there's other ones where you've got, you know, 30 millimeters of growth, maybe 40 millimeters of growth already, right? So, and then there's even some, there was one here's one here, where it's already shed the shell, right? So the shell splits, the root grows out in the shade, then you plant all that in the ground, and then the shell splits the rest of the way, and up comes the plant. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Okay. So there we go, and yeah, so that's how this is done, right? You grow the little babies, and then now as they grow, I will keep them. My first transplant from where they are now, they'll go into pots like these guys here, like a, you know, what's a 4-inch pot, right? And what that enables me to do is move them around to, because you need to determine which ones are males and which ones are females, and you can't. The males have to stay away from the females, because if the males are close to the females, they will pollinate each other. Thank you, Mr. B. And then they'll go to seed, or they go to flower and go to seed instead of, no, sorry, they go to seed instead of flowering, which is what we want them to do to become pot. It's pot flowers is actually what we smoke, right? So, or cook with, in case of old guys like me. Anyway, so there we go. We're getting our plants in the soil over here, making sure to keep the head so that the sunlight can get to it. And so I'm going to go through and do all of these, and there's probably still some that aren't split open yet, and I will take them back inside and put them back in that cool, dark place. And there'll be another crop like this, right? So, and you just keep doing that. And yeah, so the pots, I keep them in pots so that I sort of keep them all in one place so that I know where they are initially. And then as I begin to see evidence of male and female, I can then separate them, because you gotta, just like the rest of the world, it's best if you keep the boys and the girls apart if you want to get the work of growing done. Anyway, okay, so I'm going to pause this video now. You've seen what you needed to see. That's your mini update, my boy. I hope you're having a wonderful day.